All right, Miss Dana. I'm late, but had a few issues that had to resolve. Now, I normally work on two monitors when I use Audition, but I've squeezed some of my stuff down onto one monitor so I can record this. Because I can record both monitors, but it squishes them down and you really can't tell what's going on. So, that being said, I'm still going over here to my second monitor because I'm used to going over there to get all my files, but I'm going to do it all from this one screen, hopefully. And I don't have everything I normally use here. Let me close that and add this here. I'll just do the rest of it as I get to it. I'm going to open up this sample you sent me, and I notice you recorded it in stereo. So the first thing I do is go to here and no. This. Well, I thought it would. I bet it won't let me do it from from here. So what I'll do, I'm still looking over there. I'm gonna go to multi-track. Not there, here. Okay. Maybe I'll quit looking over in a minute. I'm gonna drag you over here, the stereo file. Now I'm going to mix down the entire session to mono. Okay, now that's got me what I need. Now let me explain why. When you record in stereo with one mic, you really didn't record in stereo. You recorded in mono, but if you used Audition to record into it and you told it you wanted a stereo file, what it did, it took the mono file that you was recording and it duplicated it and put one as the left and one as the right. They're the same identical file. And it doesn't really make you stereo. It makes you mono in stereo. It makes you two mono files. One's played for the left side and one's played for the right. What happens is it doesn't help your audio sound. It's not going to help your sound. It's going to increase your file size. And I'll show, when we get through here, I'll show you the difference. And when you're dealing with a podcast, and your podcast is primarily spoken word, you don't need stereo. Stereo is when you need effects, like you need to be able to tell where somebody is or where something's coming from, or you're playing music, and music needs stereo tracks, because with stereo you can make it sound wide, narrow. You can place a singer or a voice somewhere in that music by panning this way and that way, and using all kind of effects. You don't need that with a spoken word podcast. What happens is it doesn't help your audio any at all, but it does increase the file size by approximately double. And that hurts the people that are listening because they have to download double the data. Some people have a limited amount of data. So if they see that your file, instead of being, if you got a 30-minute podcast and it's more than 30 megabytes, they're probably not going to download it, or they'll go on by it. Especially, if they're on a metered internet, or their data plan is only so big, for primarily spoken word, there's no reason that it should be over 1 megabyte per minute. And so that being said, it really has more effect on the end user the person that you want to listen to it, it causes them to, it depends on their speed of their connection. Do they have a fast speed? Do they have a slow speed? If they have a slow internet connection, they want to listen to your podcast, and instead of being 30 megabytes, it's 60 something megabytes, and they're on a slow internet connection, it might buffer, it might chop up a little bit while it's downloading or streaming. And a lot of people stream now instead of actually downloading it to their device. A lot of people don't do that. They stream it now. So the people with unlimited internet, they normally stream it. And you say, well, they have unlimited internet. They do, but when they're driving, most people listen to podcasts while they're driving. When they're driving, they go through areas that doesn't have 4G or doesn't have a really fast connection. So instead of being able to listen to the entire podcast in 30 megabytes of data, now they have to download 60 megabytes of data to listen to the same podcast, and it doesn't help the sound. So always set your recording to record in mono, and it reduces, because you're gonna have to do it to mono. If you're uploading podcasts and they're in stereo, people are having to download a lot more data than they should to listen to the podcast. So always record it in mono, master it mono, upload it in mono. Don't do stereo. It's making your files way too large. Okay, on to bigger and better things. Listening to your file, I hear bumps. Papers,
Comes now the state of Oklahoma.
And I hear that.
Comes now the state of Oklahoma and gives the notice.
Now, I listened to this earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I'm going to cut this little section out here. But I tell you what I'm going to do this, though. And you'll see why shortly. Okay. I made me a little spot of silence there.
CF-2017721.
I'm going to tell you something. This audio is so much better than anything previously. This is like apples and oranges different. It's like not even the same. I would say, okay, you went from recording to wherever you were recording to now you're recording in a studio. That's the difference. This sounds so much better. It's such a better file. It's a whole lot cleaner. Your audio levels are perfect, especially if I were going to edit your podcast here. This is the perfect level of audio for me. I would say keep whatever you've got set, leave it, except for the stereo recording. I'd say ditch that, mono. Okay. And I was talking about EQ, and I'm going to do a little bit of EQ, but I'm going to tell you, you don't need any EQ really. I mean, very minor, if anything. I don't know that I would EQ it, but I'm going to do just a little bit to show you what I do, but you sound excellent. And so if Roxy's mic is working as good as yours and she sounds this good, y'all have it made. You basically, all you're going to have to do is take out the ums and ands and and the awkward part that you don't want in there. You'll still have to cut all that out. But as far as your processing, it's going to be very, very easy. Okay, the first thing I would do is mute this for a second. Okay, the first thing I would do, especially to show you what I'm talking about, highlight. I just double click on it and highlight the whole thing. And Audition CC 2019, they had some really nice updates. And one of them is found under the noise reduction and restoration. It's called denoise. Now, I really like it. I like it better than the other. Now, I've edited or processed a couple of audio files where this didn't quite do what I wanted done. So I went to the other noise reduction tools and used those to kind of dig a little deeper. But I'm going to tell you this, it come up over on my other screen. I'm sorry. This denoise here, in my opinion, now, if you've never used it, it may come up with a default preset or whatever. I use the light noise reduction on your file because that is all if anything, that's all you need. So you try it, denoise, and I'm going to just let it play. And if when you first click it, you're going to sound funny because it starts to clamp down or whatever it's doing, what it's doing, but it adapts as it goes. And it really does well.
Franklin is bound over for trial charged with child abuse murder in the first degree, CF 2016-6318, and solicitation to commit murder in CF 2017-7216. In June 2016,
I like it. It sounds really good. I just turned myself up on me, not on you. That's all the noise reduction I would do to this except for this. Now I will do this because I do this on about every track nearly, and that is apply a gate, a noise gate. And I like this one. It's under amplitude and compression dynamics, not dynamics processing. You can use that one, but I don't like, you have to kind of do a downward expander here and create your own gate. Whatever, I like this one better under just dynamics popping up over on that screen. Make sure nothing's clicked except auto gate. And now let me show you a tool here to use. Go to window, amplitude statistics. And I'm going to show you about your file. We're just going to set this over here for the time being. Let me pull it out of the way. Now I'm going to show you something. So there we go. Now under amplitude statistics, you highlight your file and it will give you a lot of information about your file when you scan the selection. Okay. Your peak amplitude here is showing minus 5.8 decibels, minus 6 decibels. That's your peak amplitude. That's where your peaks are coming to. Okay. Oh man. I may have been echoing. You may have heard some reverb. I forgot I had my speaker up. So forgive me on that. I didn't realize I had my headphones on. I didn't realize my speaker was still up. You're around minus 6 decibels peak amplitude. Okay. But if you'll come down here, your maximum RMS, your maximum root mean square amplitude is minus 15.5 decibels. So you have about, give or take, around a 10 decibel range right there. We're going to try to knock that down a little bit. And we're going to do that in a minute I'll tell you, since I'm talking about it, we'll go ahead and do it now with compression. So we'll do the noise gate in a minute. I got ahead of myself. This tells you your peak amplitude and your maximum RMS amplitude minus 15.5 decibels versus minus 5.8. So what I do normally is just scan with my threshold knob here till I start seeing it.
Franklin was a practicing dentist in Tulsa, was married and had 4 young children.
Oh man, I can't.
And was engaged in.
I need to put this aside. Now.
Franklin is bound over for trial charged with child abuse murder in the first degree, CF 2016-6318.
Okay, when you see that jumping,
murder in CF
when you see that, what's happening is you're passing the threshold and the compressor starts to act and starts to compress. What we don't want to do is compress your voice. You don't want your voice compressed. We want the peaks that's above your average volume. Those peaks we don't hear. You don't hear them. They're just there. They're in the way, and they keep you from actually amplifying because you will hear them when they go over 0 decibels and they clip. It's called distortion. You don't want that. But we want to get rid of those peaks And some people, and I saw a YouTube tutorial the other day, and some dude was supposed to have 30 or 40 years of experience in this audio field like this. He said, what you do is you bring up your limiter right here and you set it for like whatever, wherever you want to cut it off, minus 15 degrees, 15 degrees, minus 15 decibels. You set your limiter for that and it'll just, yeah, it will. But a limiter and a compressor, while they are basically they work on the same principles. But the difference between a limiter is when a limiter gets to that point, it chops it off. A compressor, as it's reaching that point, and you set the compressor, you set that with your ratio. Your limiters here doesn't give you a ratio. When you set your point for a limiter, when it hits that point, it says chop, slice. It just cuts it off. A compressor, when you get to that point, there's a ratio there, and as it starts to go past your threshold, it starts to clamp down tighter and tighter and tighter. So it doesn't chop it off, it compresses it, and it's a lot less destructive sounding is the best way I know to put it, especially if you have to do some severe compression, which could almost be considered limiting. It is, but your ratio is a tool you have on a compressor that you don't normally see on most limiters. So we don't want to use the limiter for this part of this. We want to use the compressor. And most people will say 2.5 to 1 ratio. Not me. I use a 5 to 1 ratio. Because I do want it to take them off, but I still want that compression to kick in, but I don't want it to just slap it off. And I'll show you what I mean. As we were playing your file,
77216. In June 2016,
see, it's still it's compressing some of your voice, and I don't want that. I don't want to compress your voice at all.
Franklin was a practicing dentist in Tulsa, was married and had 4 young children, and was engaged in an adulterous relationship with...
Okay, I'm going to use minus 16.4 decibels. I don't want any makeup gain at this stage. I don't want any gain at this stage. We're trying to get rid of something, not put something back. We just want to get rid of something right now, and that's the peaks. Now, as far as your attack on spoken word, I want my attack to be as fast as possible. And in addition, that's 0.1 milliseconds. I want my release to be almost as fast, but not quite. So I just use an arbitrary 50 milliseconds here. There's people that can tell you why you should use what you should use. I'm not one of them. That's the number I use. Now let's apply this and watch what happens. Okay. A lot of the peaks were cut off. Actually, they were compressed, but I left you some dynamic range here. Now, I'm going to undo that because I want to show you what the limiter will do if I set the limiter to the same thing. Let's go to amplitude and compression, dynamics, uncheck compression, check limiter, and let's set it to what I had at minus what I have at 16. Or 15. Let's do 16. And let's apply. Okay. Now, if you will notice where you passed minus 15 or 16 decibels, which is primarily below the infinity line here where the envelopes cycle. You see what happened? It didn't compress it. It just cut it off. And where you can see they passed minus 16 decibels up here, it did the same thing. It didn't compress it to any ratio of compression where it gradually went into it. What it did, it just cut it off. And that's not what we want. So we're going to undo that. And now let's go back to and redo the compression that we did. Everything should still be set the same. I may actually go to minus 17 and do that. Now, if you'll notice, it didn't just chop it off. You still got some uh, dynamic range involved there between the setting. I had it at minus 17 decibels. It still lets certain things pass minus 17 decibels, as you can plainly tell. Wrong way. See, there's minus 16 and there's 18, so 17 is right here. There's still audio past minus 17 decibels, and that's at a 5-to-1 ratio. So it didn't chop it off. When it hit minus 17 decibels, as it passed minus 17, the compressor went into action, and at a 5-to-1 ratio, it compressed those peaks down. The further they went, it compressed harder and harder. So we've got things up here almost to minus 14 decibels. So we didn't limit it, we compressed it, which is what we wanted to do. Okay. Now, let's...
Randall. Oh, Randall was the mother of a 19-month-old son named Lincoln Lewis. After lying to his wife...
And if we would have went through and watched this, your meter down here, your levels meter, which I hope you have that up, on your first track, you had a lot more of a swing when you were speaking. Just, it varied a lot more. Now that we brought those peaks down closer to your actual average volume, it's still got a little fluctuation. It still has some dynamic range, but it's a lot less. Now, when you're listening, you're listening more to the average versus letting it swing all the way up here to minus 6 decibels with a peak. We brought the peaks down here, so now we can bring the whole thing. Before, we couldn't have increased the average any more than 6 decibels, or we would have clipped. But see, now we've brought those peaks down closer to the average, so now we can increase the average a whole lot more, which is the purpose of compression, in my opinion. But since we've got it compressed, we've done some noise removal, which there wasn't much noise in it, but there was a little bit. We've got that done, and we've done some compression. Now, what I normally would do, and I kind of tricked myself, if you remember, I would have done a gate before. I don't know if you've used a gate. If you haven't, you need to know how. So I'm going to do it. Check the gate. Now, I wish I would have explained it earlier before we got all this out of here, but I didn't.
About coming to Oklahoma City, Franklin was in Randall's home. Although initially deleted, a security system recording was recovered showing Franklin carrying Lincoln alert and healthy through the home.
Okay. When you see it in the green, everything's coming through, everything's fine. When you see it go to yellow, it's in the holding phase, and it holds for 73 milliseconds before it starts to release. Now, what a gate does, I don't know if you know or not, so I'm going to tell you. What a gate does is you set a threshold. Right now, this one's at minus 39.7 decibels. When a signal hits 39.7 decibels, the gate opens and allows the signal to come through. When the signal drops below 39.7 decibels, what happens is, with this, since I have a hold set, it goes into a hold phase, and it holds the gate open, completely wide open for 73 milliseconds. When that time has passed, it begins to shut, and it takes 160 milliseconds for it to completely close. The reason you have all those settings on a gate is so that you can, I didn't explain the attack when a voice or when a signal hits the threshold, the attack is 0.1 milliseconds. So basically immediately. When a signal hits the threshold, the gate flings fully open. It's wide open in zero point 0.1 milliseconds. All the signals are coming through. Everything that's going into the mic is coming into the recorder or into the workstation. When the signal drops below 39.7 decibels on my setting here, it holds for 73 milliseconds, and then the gate begins to close, and it closes over a time span of 160 milliseconds. The reason that is so that those trailing words, like words, the, and, hey, so that the you don't get chopped off. You have to set that hold and release option so that you get those trailing sounds, the trailing syllables of words, and they don't get chopped off and sound unnatural. Now that you know all that, let's listen.
B, placing him on the floor, and C, then making a violent kicking motion in the child's direction, followed by a motion consistent with picking him up and violently slamming him into the floor, and then E, carrying the unconscious, possibly seizing child through the house. Hours passed before Randall realized Lincoln was not sleeping but unresponsive. She rushed him to the hospital and learned he suffered abusive head trauma, including brain bleeds and skull fractures. He died as a result of his injuries.
That sounds good. Of course, most of the denoise took most of that out, but just in case, I like to do that. Normally, I would kind of pick sections down through the audio file to make sure that I wasn't that what I was setting on the gate was not going to negatively impact the file. Okay, now let's move forward. EQ. Like I said, your audio really doesn't need any EQ. But when it comes up, this is what it looks like. Basically, I don't think you need anything, but we're going to do it.
5. Franklin's murder trial was set to begin December 4th, 2017, days before.
Normally, I would set a high-pass filter. I would bring it up to around 80 or more hertz. I'm going to use 80. And I'm going to leave the how fast, the amount that it cuts off and the ratio and all, the 24 decibels per octave. I'm going to leave that alone on the high pass. Basically, what that does is anything that drops below 80 hertz in frequency begins to be attenuated at 24 decibels per octave. And the human ear isn't going to hear anything in these extremely high ranges very well. There's going to be very little information that we can interpret or use, above that anyways. So, but a lot of noise can reside up there and other artifacts that may or may not really cause a problem. But I normally drop it down around 10 kilohertz if it's mostly males. If it's a female, I'm going to stop right about 12.5. There's no scientific reasoning behind that. That's just over some time what I fell to that I think has helped me quickly do this and not negatively impact the overall audio.
Before his trial began, Franklin solicited a hitman to kill Roxanne by using.
Now, I noticed you the other day, you sent me a little clip what you were doing, and what you were doing was creating notch filters. I saw what you did. Basically, what that is that's a notch filter. And you scanned around till you found a noise that was bothersome, and then you notched it out. A notch filter is a very useful thing when you need a notch filter. When you're dealing with spoken word, you don't really necessarily want a notch filter unless you have to have one. And that's kind of like what a de-esser is. It's sort of a notch filter for, like 4.2 or 4.4 kilohertz or whatever. It just notches out a very narrow band of frequency frequencies there to kind of kill that S sound, the sibilance. And a matter of fact, my processor that I'm using here is it has a de-esser built in it, and but anyways, a notch filter, when the human voice covers a broad spectrum of frequencies, fairly broad, anyways, and within that spectrum of frequencies, the information that our ears pick up and convert to what we hear, the sounds that we hear. When you use notch filters and completely take out particular frequencies, you affect the voice that those frequencies are contained in. And noise reduction is the same way. When you take part of the file out, it affects the sound. So you want to do as little destructive things, as few destructive things to the file as you can. But now understand, we have to get it to sound good. So there's a fine line. There's a breaking point where we compromise with a few things in order to not sound overly processed, but we still want to get enough of the noise and unwanted artifacts out. So if you set a high pass filter, get it up around, some people use 100, 120 hertz as their high pass filter. That's fine. Very little of the human hearing range is below that. As far as the voice is going to fall below 120 hertz anyway. So you can, feasibly do that. But the primary concern I have is not necessarily that. It's in a lot of situations and in a lot of recording environments, you get a lot of low end rumble. You can't hear it really when you're in the room, but this microphone and this equipment will pick it up. And so that being said, when we EQ that out, that can possibly help with what we might perceive as muddiness or boxiness or something like that, or just this low noise in our sound. That can help with that. So I always apply that. Most of the time I'm going to apply this low pass filter up here. Anything else I do with this audio waveform is going to be very picky, very small, and as little as possible, especially what I'm hearing here.
A smuggled phone and manipulating his wife to transfer money to the hitman. Upon discovering this evidence, the state immediately filed the solicitation to commit the murder charge of RR in CF-2017-7216. Franklin has also been bound over on that charge, and the cases have been joined for trial. Text messages. In the weeks leading up to Lincoln's murder, Franklin sent multiple text messages threatening physical violence against Lincoln's biological father, M.L. Henry. Discovery items 1149-81. The messages demonstrated Franklin's extreme jealousy of Henry, as B. Franklin feared Roxanne Randall was continuing in a sexual relationship with Henry, and Franklin's anger that Henry, as Lincoln's father, would continue to be in Lincoln's life. Okay, text messages. June 5th, 2016, text messages from the defendant's mother. A text message included on discovery item 1599 was forwarded by Franklin to Roxanne Randall on June 5th, 2015. The message was written by Franklin's mother and initially sent to both him and his wife, Siobhan. He then forwarded the message to Randall. The message describes actions by Franklin. The message context is follows. And this is from Franklin's mother. I have not started anything, so why are you blaming me? After feeding everyone, I was standing in the kitchen and was looking at Harper, and he started saying, why are you looking at me? After that, I looked at him, and he just came across to me and started hitting me in the head and saying, whatever. Taylor had to say, Dad, don't talk to your mother like that, and don't hit her.
Okay, I realize that you have, you hear your voice in a certain way. I hear my voice in a certain way. And when you hear your own voice and you're EQing your own voice, there's some things that you probably are not going to like about it. and you're going to want to change, and that's fine. That's, whatever you think is best. But what I hear is a voice that doesn't need really any EQ, in my opinion, because it doesn't need to be changed. It's good. It works for what you're doing. I wouldn't change it, but I realize that's subjective and personal preference. So just that's my 2 cents on the EQing of your voice. So especially with that mic, it sounds great. I know I mentioned it, but you are worlds ahead of where you were. So that's great. Okay. Next I wouldn't do anything else, but now I want to show you this. It's another, addition to the CC 2019 Audition, and it's the D reverb. Now, I don't technically personally hear any reverb that's negatively affecting your audio, not in the headphones, anyways. But they have it here, anyways, and let's just see what it does.
I'm just tired of all this. To hide his wrongdoing, his talking to me like this, I'm tired of my life. I think once the house is sold, we will buy a small house and move out. I
You hear
cannot
how
live
it
like this
sounds?
the rest of my life. No matter how much I do, I'm not good as a mother. All I'm doing is protecting him and his family. If that is wrong to protect your own child, then I am wrong. You are gone for long hours and no one knows what he's.
I'm not gonna do that because I personally don't think that you have any reverb or anything that's really impacting, the file. So I'm not going to do it, but it's there. And I haven't heard that I know of Roxy's voice and on her new mic and in whatever environment she's recording in. So that D reverb may come in handy for you, but be very careful about how much you apply. I have RX7, Isotope RX7, and they have a D reverb, and it's to take the reverb out of an audio file. I would say, when you look at at the spectrogram of audio that has reverb in it, to try to get that out, I would say is technically impossible. It's not going to happen. Uh, and in order to reduce it, if you have a bad reverb, in order to reduce it enough, it's going to make the audio just sound terrible. So the only way to handle reverb, to really handle it, is to not let it get in there. But if you do have some slight reverb, RX7 has helped me, and it would help you. And so I'm hoping I don't have anything with that much. I may now, since I had my speaker on, it might come in as a little reverb or something that I can work with in a little while. But uh, you know, try it and see if you need it, but definitely don't overdo it. But the next thing I would do on this, since I have this like this, is what's called in Audition, it's called match loudness. And on this screen, I don't think I have it up here, so we'll pull it up. It's under the window if you don't have it up, and it's called a match loudness. And that's what it looks like there. Now what you do, the file that you're working on, just left click on it and drag it down and drop it right in there. Now what I usually do here is my target loudness is minus 23 lufs. The rest of this stuff is probably already set like this, and yours, I just leave that like it is. And I use this. You have several options. I use this top one, the ITUR, whatever, and run that on the file. And it's going to basically increase it to minus 23 lufs. And I just zoomed out some, so I didn't take it back. I just zoomed out. It's still the same level. And once I do that, I'm going to go to the multi-track and I'm going to take out this uh, stereo track and I'm going to put in this mono track that I just worked on. Okay, and something that I didn't do over there, I'm going to do here is take out this front bit here. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you something else that's real neat. We've got you in here. Now, also, don't overlook your master track down here. What I normally do on my master track, I highlight the master track, then I go to my effects rack. If you don't have it, go to window and click on effects rack. And I'm going to go right here and I'm going to click on that little triangle and I'm going to go to amplitude and compression and go to hard limiter. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to set it to -1 decibels. Leave the rest, don't put any gain, any boost or whatever. Leave the rest of that alone. -1 decibels on the maximum amplitude. X that out. Now you have a hard limiter effect on the master track. And the reason is you never, don't ever let your master track clip. You don't want anything to clip, but especially that track. And so now we have your file up here. The master track's down here. And since your voice is so melodious on this track, sounds so good, and we've got it at a decent level. We've got it a little noise taken out. We run our little EQ on it, just a little touching up here and there. It's all it needed. We're gonna find you a really nice music bed. And I think, what do you think? Eyes of Glory, Passing Time. Let's try that one. Let's see what Passing Time sounds like. Sounds good. Okay. We're going to give you a first. I'm going to get this out of the way. Going to give you a little music intro there. Now I'm going to tell you about auto ducking. Audition will automatically duck the music bed or whatever file you apply it to. I'm going to show you how to apply that if you don't already know. And it's nice if you use it correctly. Sometimes you're not going to want to use it. Matter of fact, in a podcast, it's probably relatively rare, but sometimes when you have a music bed, you can use auto ducking. I'll show you how to do that. You'll need something called Essentials, the Essentials rack or whatever. You'll need it up, and I don't see it. Like I said, I have everything spread across 2 monitors. So anyways, go to Window and Essential Sound. That's what it is. Now, what you're going to do is click on your dialogue or your vocal track. Then come over here to Essential Sound and click Dialogue. Then go to the music bed or the music track. Then come back to Essential Sound and click Music. Now, when you click on the music bed and you click Music and you tell that's what it is, I done messed it up. There it is. I keep looking. I don't know why it's so small right here. Anyways, what you're looking for here is ducking. I don't know why it's compressed in this little deal. But under the music tab here, you see this little doohickey. Why they've got it so compressed here is beyond me. Let me see if I can put that right here. And right here. Squish all that down. There we go. You have all this stuff. Don't worry about that. Go to ducking, and it says here it's all gonna it's set fine. It's gonna duck against the dialogue track. Click that. Now once you've done that, you'll notice over here, you'll see this dotted line appear. What happens is when on your vocal track, when the voice starts, or when it's about to start, Audition will automatically decrease the volume of the music track and hold it down until there's some silence in the vocal track. And that's why I left that there earlier and actually de-amplified it, so to speak, to make it silent so that you could see how that Audition, when it gets to the silent part, it will increase the music and then decrease it back again. And that's just something that's really neat, I think. I like the way it works. And I'm going to go ahead and chop that off there. Going to delete that section. Now, what I'm going to do, just real quick like, because we're about done, we've got all that. I'm going to give you a nice studio fade out there on the music. And on your voice, I'm going to give you a little fading and just real slight there. And now let's listen to that and see how that works.
Child abuse, murder in the first degree, CF 2016-6318. And
you heard the music drop as your voice come in. And if you go over here, let's just kind of speed it up a little bit. And you'll hear, as you're about to quit talking for a second, the music's going to come up.
As Lincoln's father would continue to be in Lincoln's life.
And then right back down.
Okay, text messages, June 5th, 2016, text messages.
All right, now we've got all of that. And so far with the music playing and everything, we have not clipped here or on the master track. So we're doing good. We're going to pretend we've looked at all of it. It all sounds good and looks good and no clipping. But we are not at our
is from the defendant's mother. A text message included on Discovery Item 1599 was forwarded by Franklin to Roxanne Randall on June 5th, 2015.
You see?
The message was written by Franklin.
So we need to get all of this to the right level. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this back up, the match loudness, and our files. And now we have the passing time music track, and we have this one. There's several ways to do this, but now this is the way I do it. Some people, sorry about bumping that. Some people would do it differently. There's several ways to do it. I've done it several ways. I just, myself personally, like what I'm about to do better. That's just the way I like it. I'm going to mix down the entire session to a new file. Here's my new file. I'm going back to multi-track. Now, as you'll see, it's not here. It is over here. And it's this one. Now I'm going to solo that track. The other two aren't going to play. Bring the playhead back to the front. Now this is you and the music.
Child abuse, murder in the first degree, CF 201.
Okay. Now, you and the music bed. See, we listened to it earlier. We decided, hey, this sounds good. Everything, the levels are fine as far as the music relative to the voice. The music bed relative to the vocal track sounds good. I'm not saying it actually does here. I'm saying that's just for time's sake. I said that. Okay, now we've got this here, but it's still at best -9 decibels. We need to bring it up now to where it goes. That's where this comes into play, this match loudness. So we're going to bring that newly created file down here to match loudness. And where we had -23 LUFS, I use -14 for my final output. You can do that with these separate tracks, and it won't work exactly the same. It'll do. A lot of times you'll find as you get louder, the music gets louder. You want the music actually a little bit quieter. So, but I mixed it down. So I'm going to just do that one track. Okay. Now that brought me on up there. Now keep in mind, I'm going to keep an eye, if you will, on my master track down here.
6-6318 and solicitation to commit murder in CF-2017-7216. In June 2016, Franklin was a practicing dentist in Tulsa, was married and had 4 young children, and was engaged in an adulterous relationship with R. Randall. Randall was the mother of a 19-month-old son named Lincoln Lewis. After lying to his wife about coming to Oklahoma City, Franklin was in Randall's home. Although initially deleted, a security system.
See, that sounds really good to me. You're loud. You're up there where you're supposed to be. I've got the limiter set at -1 decibels, and that's both tracks are getting there really close. And you can tell this one that is what it is. But I like that. It's loud enough. It's not overbearing. I don't hear really any distortion to speak of. I think it sounds fine. I would be probably finished. And you understand what I'm saying. There may be some things I would do. I would continue to work on a few things, but that sounds really good to me. So that's how I would do that. You could, like I said, there's several other ways, and you may develop a way of your own. I like doing it this way. And now what I would do is just export that track. I would come here and I would hit selected clips because I got that one clip selected. We want to make it an MP3. That's fine. I would change this to 96 kilobits per second. Constant. Don't use variable. Variable's better, but not all devices play nice with variable bitrate files. So keep it on constant for right now until we're sure that the great majority of devices that people listen on will handle variable bitrate. Right now, not all do, believe it or not. So keep it at constant bitrate. And make sure your format is MP3. And I'm going to name it Dana's. I got my caps lock on. Dana's mixed down. You mixed it down, Dana. And it's going to go into right where I want it. Now, let's bring that file up.
Child child abuse murder in the first degree, CF 2016-6318, and solicitation to commit. Keep placing him on the floor and your mother like that, and don't hit her, and wear the same clothes.
Boy, we listen to that fast. And that's about it, Miss Dana. That it sounds good. Your audio is improved dramatically. So there you go. I wanted to get this for you, so I'm fixing to edit this, and I'll probably put it on YouTube and send you a link. I don't know why I'm telling this on the video. You'll know that I put it on YouTube and sent you a link before you ever get to this part of the video. Sometimes my brain works backwards. See you later.